Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. We are in episode 44, and I am your host, Arielle Silver. I am a Los Angeles-based singer-songwriter, originally an East Coaster, so got a lot of hearts over there for back east, up and down the coast. And I am very happy to welcome fellow Angelino, who has been here for a while, but I don't think he's from here originally. We'll find out. And very happy to bring onto the screen Joel Eckels. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. You know, Joel, I know that we probably had just the barest bones of conversation when we first met, but back in '06, '07, somewhere around there, you were one of the first musicians that I encountered in Los Angeles because I was on tour, I was booking shows, and I'm pretty sure you were the one that booked me and my band to play, or maybe it was just me solo, I don't even remember.
Sounds
over
about
at
right.
Room 5. And so it's really fun to have you on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Great. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. And so we were talking in the green room about the fact that in one of my promo posts for this show, I had mentioned your song 45. And I thought this was really interesting, what we were starting to talk about behind the scenes. You wrote this song 45, which, folks, I'm sure you've been spinning it relentlessly like I have for the last X number of years. And if you haven't been, you should be. I love, love, love this song 45. And it's funny because I did first hear it a long time ago. And when you and I were talking in the green room, you were like, oh, maybe I'll play it today or maybe not, or who knows. But I was a little bit curious about like when you wrote that song, where that song came from, what was the seed of the song?
Well, it's interesting actually in a number of levels because I actually wrote that song when I wasn't living. I was briefly not living in LA in the middle of my time that I've been in LA. I've been here 20 years. I did not actually grow up here, but I have been here the longest I've ever lived in one place. So.
Me too. Same.
So yeah. So anyways, the reason I bring that up is that there was a year and a half where I went to Missouri of all places, because when you leave LA and looking for another place to live,
Missouri.
you go to Missouri.
Of course.
But no, my family was there, and I just kind of needed a break from LA for a minute. My brother was there, and I had a bunch of musician friends, and it was just a chance to kind of just clear my head and try to be a little more central and tour and things like that. So but I was always coming back to LA, and I kind of, it was as if I was on tour the whole time I was gone, because I was back every 3 or 4 months or so, and so I one time when I was in LA, I was staying in Laurel Canyon with a friend of mine, and I started writing that song there. And the reason I bring that up to those specifics is because coincidentally, and what's cool right now is beginning of last year, I moved to Laurel Canyon, and I've been here ever since, and it's been amazing. And so yeah, it's full circle a little bit. But 45, I don't know. I was thinking about just, really, I was thinking. I mean, it's kind of a couple different things kind of crashing into each other. I was drawing some similarities to a relationship I was in at the time, but also and strangely how that at the time sort of paralleled the mentality I was having thinking about the music industry. So chew on that, I guess. But it's basically just like thinking about, and I've always been kind of frustrated with the fact that I see all this great talent with booking the venues and just being a musician, touring around, and seeing who's out there, and then what gets pushed in the mainstream and all that, and it's like, okay, so they're basically pushing stuff on us that they know they can sell easily with low overhead, more or less, to put it simply. I mean, or the lowest overhead. But yet, there's all kinds of developmental acts or acts that are already developed on their own that are incredible. That really, music lovers would love to hear, but they aren't marketable in certain ways, or they need too much money put into them to make it work. I don't know. And so I just got into a whole frustration about that, and realizing like pop music stands for popular music, but
Right.
when you're really like dictating what's coming in, and keeping other things from that channel, for people like that aren't like actively looking for music. If you aren't getting it across their plate or whatever, then they're not going to find it. And I just have felt like that was always unfair, because to me, at the end of the day, it should always be about like the best music should be heard, right? And
Right,
so
right.
it was just kind of my like angst over that at the time, and yeah, it seems to speak. People like the song.
Well, it's a great song, it's a great. I want to say it's a great song and not a great song, but it's a great song. And one of the things that's so great about it is that you do have. I mean, it's just this sexy song, and then the whole bridge. You have this total commentary on this, exactly what you're talking about right now.
Right.
Um, you know, what what is pop music, and it's you know it's like a really smart, really great moment in the song, and it turns a song that's already really fantastic, just like, I don't know, it's like in the bridge, it just like the depths kind of open up, and you just go right down into it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't just a good feeling song and a sexy feeling song and like, all the stuff. It's like it's also got a lot of commentary about the industry.
Yeah, I was really self-conscious about that part. Even to be honest, I was talking about this the other day, and I remember when I wrote that, because it's almost like a rap in the middle
Yeah.
of the song, and I remember when I wrote that, and I remember going to Room 5 to play that song for the first time, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, is this even? And that's an interesting thing about new songs. You can probably relate to, like, you just don't really have a gauge on what it's going to be like when it hits the world, and like hits air for the first time, and you don't know always what's good and what's not, and what works and what doesn't. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, though. And this was one of those moments where it was just like, I guess it was just working through the discomfort of like, am I really going to put myself out there and like do a rap in the middle of this? But yeah, it was like an interesting thing in the writing of it. It just kind of came to me, and something I obviously had to say. And I know at first I was self-conscious, because I'm like, does this just come out of nowhere? And because yeah, the song has more. I felt like it was more fun to music with a bit of swagger to it is always a little more interesting. And I had my own personal tie-ins to just making it a little bit more of just not talking about the details and facts of the whole music industry side of it, but making it a little bit more of a sexy love story of some sort. But then yeah, I dove into that, and it stuck. Like, I really wasn't sure after that first night of playing it if that part was going to stick, and it stuck. So
Yeah, it totally sticks, and it's awesome. And I want to say hi to Nikki O'Neill. Was my guest a couple of weeks ago. Was it last week, Nikki? I can't even remember. No, 2 weeks ago. Nikki, hi, nice to see you. Thanks for saying hi. And Mark in Dallas, and for the folks who are tuning in, please say hi in the chat and let us know where you're coming from. Um, I love what you're saying, Joel, about first of all, about the new song and not knowing exactly. It's like you got to get in front of an audience and sort of play it. I love this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm curious about your thoughts about audience, but the second reason I love you saying that is because I'm going to play a new song today that I literally just wrote
right.
last week, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm curious, when you get up on stage and you have the opportunity to sort of bounce off a new song to an audience, and then right now, for the last year plus, we haven't, as songwriters, really had that opportunity to, get in a room with people and play a song and just I mean, as performers on a stage, it's like we are seeing the audience's facial expressions. Like we're seeing, is this resonating with them? Are they
Mm-hmm.
like getting distracted? Like what is happening with this song? And um, I'm curious from your perspective, both as a songwriter and as someone who's been involved. I mean, you've been involved in a lot of facets of the industry with Room 5 and Hotel Cafe and Lucas Nelson and all kinds of stuff. What is the role do you see as with the audience, but the relationship between the audience and the performer?
I mean, clearly the live music experience in the best set and the best situation and scenario is to be in front of a live audience, because that there's an energy exchange that's
Yeah, totally.
that happens, that it's just, I don't know the scientifics or physics of it, but it's like, there's obviously something we can all speak to that happens when you're in a room, and just that exchange of energy, and it's an important part of the live music experience, not just for the validation of songs and performances, but just I don't know. I just think that, like, even just throughout a song, you can feel when the audience is like, whether it's a gasp that you can actually hear, or just people like really getting hit where they're feeling these lyrics, or some performance, or some crazy note or something, where having that, and feeling that when you're around other people feeling it too. There's something to that I think is the ultimate experience. But I think with this, what we're challenged with is the fact that there's different ways to experience live music, and we need to explore those, because I've learned in this to realize that there's a lot more to look at. Because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and just putting in perspective the fact that when you're an artist, and you're trying to get your thing going, and you're going out and you're playing these shows and you're promoting, a lot of times you gauge how successful you are in that with who's coming to your shows, and you're gauging how many people are actually listening and caring about your music with the people that are making it out to your shows. And it's not a great thing to do, I've found. I mean, because you're forgetting about a whole bunch of other people that you don't necessarily get that you don't see that they're listening. So what I'm getting is, I was talking to somebody, and I said, listen, think about all your favorite artists of all time, like your favorite artists in your vinyl collection, your CD collection, your iTunes, whatever, and now think about, of those like top 5, let's just say, how many of those have you seen live? And there's a chance that you haven't seen any of those live. So think about that for a second. If they're your favorite artists, but you've never seen them live, if you were gauging how much you liked an artist by how many times you've seen them live, or if you're an artist and you're gauging your audience's love for your music on how many times they've seen you live, it's not going to be accurate, And so I find that when I put that perspective on, they think about it, and I think about it, and it's like, well, there's a lot more people out there besides just the people making it out to your shows that are hearing your music. And so these new opportunities that we're exploring now with virtual shows, live streams, and everything, there's an opportunity to reach a lot more of those people, and the people that are really tuning into your music. And I think that it's good to look at that, and then how we can make those experiences better so that they can work together with, it's just, I think having more live music experiences as we move forward is going to be a good thing. Now, ultimately, nothing's going to replace the real thing of actually being there. And so that I don't think that'll ever go away. And I think that as long as we talk about it, and make sure people understand that, and take the opportunities to go see a real live show, and feel that real exchange of energy, and the moving experience of a great performance, and all that, then I don't think people need to question it. They know. But it's my only thing is, if you get used to the virtual experience and that's all you know, you may never go try to have the live music experience, and that would be a shame. So I think it's really just about how we talk about it, and I think we need to give people more opportunities, to see real live music, living and breathing music.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you were saying earlier today that, you know, I mean, this was really great insight that, you know, the folks in their 20s, those are the ones who are going out to the nightlife and catching those shows at night. And then when folks hit their 30s and their 40s, a lot of times they've got careers, they've got to be up early in the morning, the shows are always late, or they've got kids that are put to bed early, they can't go out and, you know, going out to a show and paying, you know, whatever it is to get in the door, plus whatever they're going to buy at the bar, plus the babysitter.
Yeah.
You know, it starts to make date night, you know, not something that you necessarily do all the time. You know,
Right.
that you,
I mean,
that
there's
you
a reason why it's that way, and it makes sense. And when you put it in those like decade perspectives of just those
Yeah.
you know, yeah, when you're in your 20s, you're going out, you're meeting people, you're finding out, you know, what you're into, who you know,
Yeah.
what your lifestyle's all about. But then in your 30s, you're in your 30s, and then into your 40s, you're like, okay, I got to get serious now, and what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And then 40s, you know, you're really like, now you're in it, and so it's never for a lack of wanting to go out.
Right,
I
exactly.
shouldn't say never, but for a lot of people, it's not. You know, because
Yeah.
you're a music lover, you're a music lover. I
Yeah.
talk to people all the time that want to go to shows so bad, especially now, of course. But even you know when they're wrapped up in their lives, they want to go to shows, but they can't always go to shows, and
Yeah,
I
they
can't
just have
always
that-
go to shows.
The
you know?
competing priorities.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. But then, you know, now I'm starting to think about like the role of the audience, not just to the performer, but the role of the audience to the audience. You know, we performers are the ones who now, you know, to varying qualities, I guess, are performing live streaming. You know, we are still performing in some way or another, but the audiences aren't seeing the audiences in most of these live streams. And there's something about that energy. You know, when you're sitting at a table or standing along, I'm just picturing Hotel Cafe in my head right now, you know, like sitting at one of those little cocktail tables or leaning against the bar along the side. And it's like there are other people there and you're kind of, you know, sometimes they're in your way because they're holding up their their cell phone and they're recording the show, and you're like, will you put your phone down? And then, you know, maybe someone turns to someone else and they're talking, but all of that stuff, you know, the nodding of the heads or just the movement of people around, that there's something about all of that that is, I don't know another word to say other than magic. Like there's something magical that happens within the audience, and the audience is all there because of what's happening on the stage. They wouldn't just gather to stand in, you know, this room, you know, if there wasn't something happening. But there's still something magical happening, audience to audience member.
yeah. I mean, that's what I love so much about everything that I'm involved in and what I do with production and the music venues is, you know, really trying to provide a quality live music experience that, and what what I try to do is create an environment for live music and the magic of live music to happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, not all venues cater to that. You know, they just kind of like throw it up there and do your thing, and you know, and then there's others that kind of know the nuances that make the difference, and that's one of the things I've always loved about Hotel Cafe and everybody that's worked there is we've all kind of been on the same page of like, even if we don't talk about it specifically to that, we all understand the live music experience. And then beyond that, we also understand things like music community and how important that can be. And just, you know, there's just a lot to that's very nuance based that if it's there, it does suddenly create this environment where, like, for instance, you know, you have a venue that has great sound where the nuances of the performance come across very well in the audio. But then you also have, you know, like a Hotel Cafe where it's like kind of inherent for the most part that you know, it's a listening room where you can really hear everything going on. You can hear a pin drop in some performances.
Yeah.
And then because of that, you have the artists that come to those types of rooms that understand that there's care given to providing this experience, and that translates to, wow, I feel really comfortable on this stage and it sounds great and this is what I want. And then when they're comfortable, all the head stuff that usually is going on is relaxed, and then you get these performances that are what you want. And that, to me,
Right.
I feel like at these venues like Hotel Cafe, we've had performances that to me are as good or better than what they're trying to capture in the studio a lot of times, because
Because
it's
that
they're in.
audience piece, there's that.
Right, yeah.
Right,
So
there's that magic piece
you bring
that's
all
like,
that together, and everything's not compromised. It's just all the right things are in line. Then these performances happen, and it is magic. It
yeah.
really is.
So you, I think you grew up moving around a lot, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I
Where
was in a
you,
Navy family.
right? Where are you from? Where were you born?
Seattle.
Okay, and now you're in LA. You spent some time in Missouri, and I guess a lot of other.
I've lived in uh, yeah, I've lived in Seattle area a couple times. I've lived in Monterey. I've lived in Oxnard, LA. I've lived in Pensacola, Florida, Newport, Rhode Island, Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I've even lived in Keflavik, Iceland.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where did the music thing come for you? When did that, like, how did you know you are just, I mean, you even just moved to Laurel Canyon, like
I know.
you were in it. When
Yeah,
did
I
that,
mean,
how'd that
music's
start?
always been around in my life, but there's never a big emphasis on music growing up, and especially no emphasis on trying to pursue music. That kind of came out of the blue. And there was just influential people growing up, and just little moments that happened along the way that kind of just I got the bug, and I was interested in late elementary school, actually a little later than most people when they're introducing people to instruments for the school band. I was late to the party on that, but then I got caught up and ended up I was playing saxophone in the school band for a little while, and then that turned into me playing guitar and starting to write songs. And then in high school, for lack of a better singer, I ended up being the singer in bands, and then that stuck to where I was writing songs and singing my songs, and then I just kind of went from there. My brother I have a brother who's also a musician. He tours, is a guitar player, and he tours with Andy Frasco in the UN. It's a touring act that's really great and a lot of fun. And he kind of was just following everything I was doing for a while until I went off to college, and then he just kind of took everything that I had shown him and turned it into this whole thing. And he's an incredible guitar player and just a really cool guy. And so we had each other to inspire the music journey and like the path to following music. Before that, it was, like I said, it was just kind of influential people, but nobody was specifically saying you should pursue music or
Yeah.
anything like that. It just kind of like I was trying to figure out like what I wanted. I knew I wanted to do something that I loved. That was kind of my whole thing. I'm like, look, I remember a statistic when I was growing up where it said how much of a percentage of your life you spend working.
Mm,
And I was like, man,
mm,
if you're going to spend that much of your life working, you better do something that you love.
that's right.
And so
Yeah.
I, my dad was always, wanting me to go to college, and, what are you going to do? And I'm just like, I'm not interested in any of this stuff, but I wanted to go to college for music. And at the time, they didn't really have a lot of progressive music school
Yeah.
programs in colleges. And it was all classical, traditional music based. And there were the ones that would have like, Belmont or Berkeley or things like that were out of state for me and way too expensive. And so I still wanted to find a way to go to music school. And long story short, because my family was in the military, we had established residency in Florida, and I applied to Florida State University for their classical guitar program.
Yeah.
And I had no business being in the classical guitar program, but I
Yeah.
was interested in it. But I didn't have any proper preliminary training at all. I had a surf guy, in Virginia Beach that showed me how to play like heavy metal, like Baroque type stuff and whatever.
Right.
And I went to the audition, and somehow I got in. I think the professor saw something in me and let me get through anyways. And I learned a lot that I still have retained, but I mean, I started getting into bands and playing out, and we were making money and right off the bat. And to me, I was like, oh, well, I'm making money and playing music. And then I go to my one-on-one classical guitar teacher, and he'd be like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. What? I'm already making money, man. Come on. Like, what am I going to do with this classical guitar career? Am I going to play weddings and hotel lobbies? I mean,
Right.
I think I have a better shot writing songs right now, so that was kind of how that all, and I've just been doing it on my own since.
I love it. There's so much optimism in that story. I just want to bottle it up. I wish I could send it to my younger self.
I kind of feel like in a lot of ways I've just been flying by the seat of my pants the whole way through, and somehow it's worked out. And I mean, it hasn't been easy, that's for sure, but it's, I'm very grateful and fortunate that it's gone the way it's gone, and I'm in a pretty cool place with everything that I do now.
Yeah.
I still have more goals and aspirations, but I am very happy where I've landed so far.
So you said that you just moved to Laurel Canyon. I just
Yeah.
finished watching the two-part. I saw Echo in the Canyon, and then I watched
Mm-hmm.
the two-part Laurel Canyon documentary, and loved that one, the two-part
Yeah, it was a good
two-parter.
one.
Really inspiring, and just I loved how it pulled in a lot of different threads. Laurel Canyon being the unifier. Why did you move there? Was it because of that, or was it, and why do you love it there?
It was serendipity, really. I mean, I had been coming to Laurel Canyon since I first moved to LA, and I had a friend who lived here when I first moved here, and my ex-wife and I were hanging out with them a lot, and he did a whole album in Laurel Canyon right before he moved out of Laurel Canyon. I met a bunch of musicians through that project that are still great friends of mine today, and so it was kind of like an introduction to Laurel Canyon in this, at the time, this present moment experience that encompassed everything that Laurel Canyon was about, including the guy that was doing photos during this album project that we were doing. Was also, and he did the album cover for this record, is Henry Diltz, who is the guy that two-part documentary centers around, because he was the documentarian of the Laurel Canyon music scene, and took a lot of those iconic photos that we all know, and they centered a lot of stuff around his stories in that documentary. And I've gotten to know Henry over the years through the original project I was involved in, and then just being around the scene. And so I just always thought, I caught what a magical place it was, and just
Yeah.
the idea of it to me was always cool, because I've always been big on music community and how important that is in the grand scheme of things. And I still am fighting for people to understand and be aware of how important it is
Yeah.
to this day. And that, and just how cool it is to have a place like this where it's just beautiful. You're right 5 minutes from Sunset Strip, but you feel like you're in the mountains,
Yeah.
and it's just like a village of like cool people that are all looking out for each other, and there's a bunch of musicians, and they want to collaborate and do things. It's family. So to have that in LA, I think, is pretty cool. So I've always wanted to live here. And then just 2019, I was living in Highland Park with my girlfriend, and we were trying to figure out how to move into a bigger place, because our place was cramped. And long story short, it was one of those situations where somebody we knew had a situation where they really wanted to get some good tenants and not deal with bad tenants anymore, and they were willing to work with us so that we could move into this place. And when we saw the place, we were like, are you kidding me? And it's like this, it's just perfect for what we were looking for, and we've been able to work it out with the landlords, and they love having us here, and it's like a dream come true. So that it's, to me, I can only take it as like all that hard work. It's like,
Yeah.
now I get an opportunity like this, and I wouldn't take it for granted in a million years. So,
Yeah.
and it feels full circle in a lot of ways. So
That's awesome. That's
appropriate.
beautiful. It's so cool. I feel like I just want to talk about so many different things with you, but I also want to honor the fact that this show is Tomes and Tunes, and so I asked you if you would share something that you've been reading or something that you just love. So I'm curious if you have something.
I mean, I will be totally. I don't want to pretend like I read more than I do. I mean, I love reading. Don't get me wrong. I just I wear so many hats that I I don't make it a priority, and I'd love to again. But I have read a bunch of books, and I love reading books. And one of the ones that just keeps popping up, and I always go to. I don't know why. I mean, I think it makes sense in a lot of ways, but this book right here, I just love. Life by Keith Richards. And I read that. For me, this is important because a book this thick is not something that I would even think I would have time for or be able to get through. And I flew through this book. So it just goes to show what, if you're interested in something, then, you'll fly through it. So I don't know. I mean, I've read. There's a lot of books that I love. I mean, everything from things like The Alchemist to Brother Ray was another autobiography about Ray Charles that I really loved, and I think I lent it to somebody. I was trying to find it earlier, but
that person's not a friend anymore.
no. Well, but they are. It's more about me forgetting that I lend things out to people. I used to stop lending when we would trade CDs. I had to stop myself from lending out CDs because I always would forget who I lent them to. And I'd never get them back,
totally. So. Yeah.
But there's a book too that I love that they eventually. I mean, it's a TV series now or whatever. But a long time ago, I remember reading The Alienist by Caleb Carr, and I really just, for whatever reason, it's kind of a crazy dark story, but there was just something about it that I loved, and the detail and how it kind of tied into history and stuff. And for whatever reason, that book, of all the books that I've read, I really liked it when I read it so much, and I was so just pulled into it that I still to this day it pops in my mind when I think about some of my favorite reads.
Huh.
Yeah.
Love that. Is there a little passage or a quote or something from that Keith Richards book?
Yeah, there's...
That book, by the way, that book is like tomes. Like, it's definitely a nice thick, couple 2 inches maybe there.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. I might paraphrase a little bit because it kind of spans over a little while. But I love this part in this book where they're talking about the early success of the Rolling Stones and coming to LA, because it's just, you put it in perspective and it's just such a trip. And so there's I'll read some of this, and then I might skip to get the full passage that I'm looking to talk about here. So this is from the book. The weird thing is that when the first record came out, we were still basically a club band. I don't think we had played anything bigger than the Marquee. The record wormed its way up to the top 20, and suddenly in a matter of a week or so, we'd been transformed into pop stars. This was very difficult with a bunch of guys that are really like, get out of here, fuck off. And suddenly they're dressing up like dog-tooth check fucking suits, and we're rushing along with the tide. It was like a tsunami. 1 minute, hey, you want to make a record? You've made a record, and then the goddamn top 20, and then you've got to do Thank Your Lucky Stars, TV you never thought about. We were propelled into show business because they were so anti-showbiz. It was like a cold shoulder to us even already, but then we realized we had to make certain concessions. So they're like getting used to like the idea of what comes along with the success, and then they go into the United States for the first time, and they got on this package tour with the Everly Brothers as the headliner. And so at first our audiences were female driven until towards the end of the 60s, when it evened out. The armies of feral body snatching girls began to emerge in the big numbers about halfway through our first UK tour in the fall of 1963. It's an incredible lineup: the Everly Brothers, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, Mickey Most. We felt like we're in Disneyland, or the best theme park we could imagine. And at the same time, we had this unique opportunity to check out the Top Cats. So, I mean, you can imagine that, how cool that would be to be on a tour like that with those guys. I mean, it's definitely next level. So they go on in explaining all this, and I don't want to read all of that, but so basically what I'm trying to describe in all this without getting too deep into the text of it all is they basically go to the US to and they have no idea what their audience is going to be like in the US, and they're on this tour because they did stuff in the UK with the Everly Brothers. They go on this tour with the Everly Brothers, and they play their first shows. I think it was even Atlanta. I'm not sure, but they go to play their first shows, and the screaming girls is just so out of hand, and that it's like they had to switch the bill, like right after, at the beginning of the tour, to making the Rolling Stones the headliners, and the Everly Brothers had to take a back seat. And Keith Richards goes into detail about how great, how amazing the Everly Brothers were, and like they were like the Rolling Stones were just idolizing these guys and how good they were, and everything that they were about, that they were just like, what are you talking about? How are we supposed to be switching places with the Everly Brothers? But it was all about the craze and the ticket sales, and and all the girls just wanted to see the Rolling Stones, so they had to do that. So I always thought that's just crazy, like interesting perspective. And he in this book he goes into a lot of just great detail. And I mean, if you want to hear somebody talk about music, Keith Richards is one of the greatest people to talk about talk about music, because he just gets into like deeper levels of detail, and just like things that you would just perception of things. And when he talks about just music in general, like all the notes and things like that, there's just so much passion in it still to this day, that I just love hearing that, because it just shows, you can tell reading this how much that love for music and obsession with music made them as great as they were. So that's what I wanted to share. I hope that's enough.
Thank you.
Didn't, I felt like
Yeah.
if I didn't have it highlighted in a way to skip around.
Yeah.
So, but that's the gist of it, and it's just a really cool book.
That must be a strange feeling that must have been strange for them when they switched the bill around.
Yeah, that's
in a
gotta
way,
be an awkward thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and read and see if the Everly Brothers had if they were
Because
upset
it kind of shifts
I can't remember.
It shifts the dynamic.
I would imagine you're a little upset about it. And I don't know if it changes how you're getting paid. I mean, I guess it would, but it's a very strange set of circumstances to be in. I guess I would imagine that doesn't happen too often these days, but I don't know.
Huh. Yeah. I want to ask you. I'll share my little passage too, but I'm reminded with that I wanted to ask you. I just have two words for you, Bill Withers. So fill in the question. I wanted to ask you a question about Bill Withers.
Well, Bill Withers, who he passed away a year ago next week, and Bill Withers to me. So, yeah, I got introduced to Bill Withers early on in a way where it was really just from the radio and hearing him, and it was interesting and looking back that I picked up on him and being curious about him early on. Not just because of the great songs, there was just something about him that I always tuned into. But I didn't really get to know Bill Withers' music until later on, when I found myself as an artist looking for. I've always been into classic R&B and soul, and then I'm also very much into rock and roll, and then I'm also just into acoustic songwriting, acoustic music and song. And I found that my music was either like I was always like funky rock and roll guy, or I was this sensitive singer-songwriter, and I didn't feel like I had an identity crisis personally, but I felt like whenever I was trying to describe my music, it felt like an identity crisis. And so I tuned into Bill Withers' music partly because I was just like, where's the in between of that just an example that makes sense. And then I started paying attention to more and more of Bill's music and realizing that he is the perfect in between of songwriting funk and soul music and everything. And so
Hmm.
I really just got obsessed with his music. And then what you're getting at is I had the great fortune of getting to know his daughter Corey. After a while, we became friends, and then we ended up playing music together, and I became her music director. And that was at a time when they were doing documentaries about her dad, and they were really starting to shift after that documentary into the idea of doing another documentary that was about her and her relationship with her dad. And she was just kind of developing and working stuff out. So at that time, things were perfectly aligned where she was like, hey, we should play music together. And by the way, there's this thing I'm doing right now, and I'm putting together a band, and I would love for you to be in the band. And that led to me being the music director, playing with a group of great musicians. On our first rehearsal, she's like, we're going to rehearse at my dad's. And so I get to meet Bill Withers, and that just rocked my world.
Hmm.
And I not only got to meet him, but right off the bat, we were working on arranging this music together.
Hmm.
And that just blew my mind because I know I was going to those sessions going, how do I need to do this? Do I need to like back
Yeah.
off and let him lead, or do I need to just do what I need to do and, hope that all goes well? And so I just stayed confident and did what I do, and he engaged in a lot of that, and we were bouncing off each other, and it was this really cool experience. And so then that ended up going on for a couple years where we were, working on Corey's stuff in different capacities, and then we became really close, Bill and I, as well as Corey and I. I mean, great. The whole family is just so great, and Bill really took a liking to me, and we became very close, and in a way that I never could have imagined, or and then I had asked him one day if I could get some help with him on an arrangement for a song I was working on. There was actually a cover song that I was working on, and I just wanted a different take on it, and I literally had thought like, what would I want to go with, like what would Bill Withers do? And I'm like, well, why don't I ask him? So when I asked him about working on the song, he's like, yeah, why don't you bring you guys down next Tuesday and we'll get into it. And I'm like, what? So he invited me and my whole band to come over, and that started like 2 months of us going over to his place,
Hmm.
pretty much like once, maybe even twice a week, a couple times, where we were like going in and we didn't even work on that cover song. We ended up getting into my songs, and he just worked my catalog with me basically, and it was just incredible. I mean, and I have all these great rehearsal recordings of just knowledge he's dropping on us, and just, I mean, he was like my Yoda, he's like they
Yeah.
got just so much wisdom and like his way with words and everything. I mean, if you want to go down a fun rabbit hole, just search Bill Withers interviews and just spend all day listening to him just talk about stuff. I mean, you really can't go wrong. There's so much good stuff. And then he gets very real and even raw sometimes too. So over the years, I mean, we've developed this great relationship, and I even took him to the Fonda to see the Alabama Shakes and Michael Kiwanuka one year, and it was just me and him, and we had this great experience watching that show, and I got to see him a
Hmm.
month before he passed away. So the last time I saw him was I would say close to a month ago, a year and a month ago, and I'm really happy I got to have that time with him. I hadn't seen him in a minute, and then Corey said that she was talking about coming by to see me, and he had mentioned like tell Joel to call me, you should come see me, and so I did, and we spent like 2 hours hanging out, watching YouTube videos and listening to demos and everything, and I'm just very glad that I got to have that experience, just in general. But I'm glad I got to have that last hang with him, and we didn't know that he was gonna go, but he was getting older, and it was his time, and so
Hmm.
yeah, that's I mean, in a long story long. that's my relationship more or less with Bill Withers, and yeah, it's one of the greatest things I've been able to experience in my life. I have to say.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm so
Thanks
glad
for
I
asking.
asked. It had been on my mind. I wanted to ask you, and that's beautiful. And I feel like the beautiful part of it is that that pivot from when you just admired him so much and you had identified him as someone who was so important to you before you met him, before you
Yeah.
developed a relationship, and then that pivot from that first era to actually having him in your life and having that guidance and mentorship.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first day. After the first day I met him, I came home to my apartment in Hollywood, and I just walked in, and at the time it was like a studio apartment I was living in, and I had my record player, and all my records were on the floor, like stacked, you know, so I could just flip through them, you know, and the records, I had two stacks next to each other, and it was Still Bill was, you know, the cover that was showing, and then there was the inside uh, sleeve of the Adjustments album, which has this big smiling picture of Bill on it. And that, when I walked in my door, I just saw this giant smiling face of Bill Withers, and I just was like, what the hell just happened? This is crazy.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. What a gift,
Oh yeah.
that you get to carry,
I mean, that,
that with you
yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Of all the people too, you know, I mean, you know, I've met a lot of people that I've admired, you know, famous people or whatever, and musicians that I've admired. But you know, he's in so many ways kind of the ultimate for me.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So, and that, yeah, I mean,
Mm.
you know, with working with Lucas and everything, I mean, we share a similar relation to that type of thing in the fact that they have a relationship with Neil Young that
Right.
is like, I mean, they've taken it even further, where his whole band is Neil's band,
Right.
and to be involved in that and watch that is really cool. I mean, I always, early on when I met Bill, I would always try to hint and nudge him towards, man, let's play. You know, you want to come on. You don't want to sing this stuff again. You know, and he actually put me on my place at one point about it, because he I had a funny exchange where it was he was getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there were these rumors going around that he was going to play, and I was like, so are you going to play? Like, what's going on here? And I was just kind of pushing, and I was like, if you need a band to rehearse with, like, we would love to do, you know. And I was just kind of pushing, and then finally he gets back to me, and he's like, listen, I'm too old to rock and roll, and you're too. And there was some other context to it. He's like, and you're too. Or no, that was what he said after. I was saying what I was saying to him, and he goes, man, you know how many times a day I get asked that same damn question, and I just don't want to have to hear it from you too. And I was just like, whoa. And then he went into this whole thing of,
It's like the big dog, the little dog smack.
yeah, and it, you know, he put it in perspective in the fact
Yeah.
that it's like, and I realized, and especially later being around him more, like seeing how often, I mean, every interview he's asked about it, and everybody's bugging him. I mean, he's got all kinds of people from, you know, even like Quincy Jones, Questlove, and people like that are trying to get him to do stuff again, and so it's like, you know, he doesn't want his immediate circle of people pushing him in the same way. That being said, like, even talking to Marcia, his wife, and Corey and whatever, it's like they're all trying to find ways of nudging him, because they all want to have it to happen too. But
Yeah.
he was stubborn, you know. He had his reasons, and I actually at the end of the day respected why he didn't want to do it anymore. And so, you know, it's but yeah, I mean, so for, you know, like seeing that, the closest I ever got to actually playing with Bill was, we were working on an arrangement for a tune, and the band had gone take a break or whatever, and he was like, Joel, play that bass line you were playing, and I was playing this bass line thing on the guitar, And he's like, hold on. And then he's like on the keyboard kind of pounding out this variation of the bass line with some adjustments. And then he's like, play that. And so I picked that up, and he's like, keep playing. And then he started clapping, and then he started humming and kind of singing mumbled words and everything. And I was like, holy shit, I'm sitting here in a room alone with Bill Withers and he's singing. What the hell? And that was cool. And then even the last, I will also say, so that was the only real time I was in the room and he was singing, which I wish there was more of that. But then later on, that last day that I got to hang out with him, he played me some demos, and it was stuff that he had written, but he had like Corey singing on the demos. But then there's one moment where we're listening, and I love this because we're sitting there listening to the song, and then he goes, "Ooh, wait, solo," and it gets to this instrumental part of the song where it's like the solo section or instrumental section is supposed to be, and it's him humming like a line. He's not singing words, but he's humming this like line that could be a horn line, it could be whatever. But the way he's humming it, I mean, it also could be a vocal line. And I'm sitting there listening to it going, motherfucker, all you need to do is sing words to this and you're singing. Like, what are you holding back for, man? Come on. Like, so many people, like, you could do this even just in this context, you know, on a demo or something. Like, man. So I wonder how many demos there are of him actually singing that he just doesn't want anybody to hear because he didn't think they were good enough because I think that was he had to live up to his own expectations and his own standards in order to put himself out there after all that time. I mean, and there's more depth to it, but I think that there's a lot to that, and you can understand. I mean, I was watching an interview with Eddie Murphy the other day, and he was talking about the same kind of thing, and like the choice to should I do this or should I just stay with where everything's at and leave it alone because my legacy is good right now. And even Bill would always say, like, I have no interest in seeing a bunch of old guys try to do what they used to do. Now, that being said, if you can still do it, it's pretty great. Even if it's a little compromised, I mean, the fact that Willie Nelson's still playing, and granted, he's not like he can't sing and play maybe up to the standard that he used to, but it's still pretty great to see Willie Nelson, and there's still those moments where you're like, oh, that voice, man.
Yeah, and I feel like there's something beautiful about the aging process too. Like, maybe we're not as pretty as we were 20 years ago. Maybe we don't sound as good as we sound, 40 years ago, or whatever it is. But there's something beautiful about that. There's something just human. I don't know. For me, there's a tender beauty about that.
I agree.
Okay. I want to hear you play. So first I have to read a little passage of this book
Let's do it.
to fulfill my Tomes and Tunes part. This is a book I'm reading right now called The Street. It's a novel by Ann Petrie. She was a Black American author. This was published in the 1940s. And she was writing about, it's a novel, and the main character is a Black woman who is a single mother. I don't know what happens, so I don't know if she ends up having a partner later, but she's a single mom raising her son in Harlem in the 1940s, and she's grappling with, I'm not very far in the book yet, so I don't know what the whole thing is about, but so far she's grappling with race for sure, and how she as a Black woman is seen through the eyes of the white woman who employed her, and white society in general. And then also in this little passage that I'll read, she's just grappling with the ghettoization, I guess, like the space between the races, and trying to figure it out. So her son, I can't remember how old he is here. I think he's 8 years old. His name is Bub, and her name is Ludi. And so I'll just start here. Bub came to stand close beside her, almost, but not quite leaning against her, as though he was getting strength and protection from his closeness to her. "Mom," he said, Why do white people want colored people shining shoes? She turned toward him, completely at a loss as to what to say, for she had never been able to figure it out for herself. She looked down at her hands. They were brown and strong, the fingers were long and well-shaped. Perhaps because she was born with skin that color, she couldn't see anything wrong with it. She was used to it. Perhaps it was a shock just to look at skins that were dark if you were born with a skin that was white. Yet dark skins were smooth to the touch. They were warm from the blood that ran through the veins under the skin. They covered bodies that were just as well put together as the bodies that were covered with white skins. Even if it were a shock to look at people whose skins were dark, she had never been able to figure out why people with white skins hated people who had dark skins. It must be hate that made them wrap all Negroes up in a neat package labeled colored, a package that called for certain kinds of jobs and a special kind of treatment. But she didn't really know what it was. I don't know, Bub, she said finally, but it's for the same reason we can't live anywhere else but in places like this. She indicated the cracked ceiling, the worn top of the set tub, and the narrow window with a wave of the paring knife in her hand. And so I'll just leave it at that. I have always been a book lover. Since I was a little kid, my folks would say, okay, time for bed. And, I would turn out the lights in my bedroom and then put my body halfway into the hall so I could catch the hall light and read whatever book I was reading. And increasingly over the years, I've became aware of, who I was reading, like what authors was I reading, who was having the opportunity to share their narratives inside my head, who was I allowing in, and I've tried to read a wide variety of experiences, and over the years I think I'm getting better, but this year in particular, in the last 12 months, spurred in part or largely in part because of the George Floyd and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've really dedicated a lot of this year to trying to read, trying to catch up on some of the reading that I missed. And so I just feel really fulfilled. I spent a lot of time this year reading Toni Morrison. There's a amazing author, Colson Whitehead. I read a few of his books. One of them is The Underground Railroad, and it's a novel. And I just feel like I feel like sometimes truth can be. I mean, almost going back to your song 45, it's like, that song is like a great groove, great feeling, and then you can deliver this like 1-2 punch in the bridge, section where it's like, oh, I'm gonna criticize society here, and it's like already the audience is kind of like grooving along with the song. It's like, oh wait, we're getting some truth here as well, not just good feeling. And I feel like fiction and songs and art in general sometimes can deliver truth in a way that just standing on a soapbox and preaching can't.
Yeah.
And not to say the soapbox is wrong either. I think there's a time and a place for both of those.
Sure. I think it's interesting because, especially with subject matter like that, and right now, more than ever, is I keep thinking, there's so many smart people that know how to communicate in the world that we need them now, because what I think there needs to be perspective and accountability in this country, especially, and really beyond too. And when it comes to this type of stuff, it's really just about understanding what other people are going through besides you, and especially if you're white. Everything's been catered towards us in so many ways, and then even to the point of our history.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is just really unfortunate, because it's just programming us to not pay attention to what other people are going through, and to just, I don't know. And I mean, for me, luckily, I was exposed to different cultures and ethnicities and things like that early on, to where, I mean, it never made sense to me to even think of it as different. It's just, I mean, it is different. It's just not, think of it in a way that where, I don't know, I could never comprehend the hate.
Yeah.
and I still don't. And I think if anything is just ignorance, and the ignorance is just lack of education, which is lack of awareness, lack of understanding, and lack of perspective. And I think books, the thing about great authors is they can put things in a way that even for us, you read it and you're just like, wow, that's so well put, it really hits me. But then beyond that, if you were reading it and it gives you a new perspective that really can change you, like that's the kind of thing that we need, is for people that just don't have the awareness, that are ignorant to the other side of what people go through and everything, need to be exposed in a way and hear it in a way that they can relate to and that resonates with them, that might have a chance of shifting their perspective
Yeah.
and seeing how it's just not, there's no sense to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that at this point in my life, I've been feeling really grateful for the fact that my family is Jewish and that I was raised in this, just knowing from the beginning that we were in a minority, and I lived in a lot of different places, and sometimes we were in more of a minority and other places less so. And I feel like the gift that has given me is that it's helped. I feel like it's helped me better understand other groups that have been pushed to the side or ignored or marginalized or somehow underrepresented, even if they're not actual minorities. I mean, underrepresented or misrepresented. That's at the same time, I think that, and the song I'll play after you is me grappling with this idea that while perhaps I feel like there was a little while this year where I was thinking, well, I am from a minority as well, and so I can understand, what Black Americans are feeling. And I think that I didn't quite buy that argument, and I think it's invalid. And at the same time, I noticed that I was thinking it like, I'm not from a family that was marching with white hoods on. I am not from, that world. And yet at the same time, I have white skin. I'm perceived as white, and I have all of the privileges that come with that. And so, that's just all of these. There's no answer, but there's just all of these ideas that kind of swirl around. That I'm really grateful for the activism of the past year, because it's forced, I think, everybody, if they're awake, if they're paying attention, to ask themselves questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are they paying attention?
There's so much to learn from different people's,
everybody. Yeah.
cultures and ways of living, and I mean, we would all be so much better off if we just accepted each other and learned from each other and worked together. I just say, at this point, after all these years of being on this planet, you'd think that we would have figured that out.
You'd think we get it. But yeah. But there has been a lot of beauty. I guess one of the benefits is, for me, just going out and buying more books and like reading authors that I had and listening to stories and all that stuff. So, Joel, we're up on the hour and I want to still have time for music. So let's get to it. You play a song. What are you going to play?
I figured I'd just play 45. I mean, we've been talking about it. I have written a lot of new music and music since I've written 45, and I'm working on a lot of that right now. And I've got my own studio finally, and I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff to release. And if you want to check out more music, I am doing I do my weekly live stream usually on Wednesdays, but I'm actually doing it tonight at 7 p.m. on my Facebook music page. And I'm excited for the new music I've got coming out and everything. But I this song, we've been talking about a lot of things related to this song today, so I feel like that's the one to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to put your Facebook page up here. Is it Joel Eckels Music?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And go ahead and switch your
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. There we go.
We good?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna take the headphones off just for this. All right. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you, Arielle, for having me. It's been great. Here we go. It's 45, written here in Laurel Canyon. Classic's got some kind of sexy. You feeling me? Never saw it clear till it left me. What was I expecting? How could it ever be the same? It never even had to change. Well, let's give pop back to the people. You're the groove, I'm the needle. Wanna play it like a 45 record. Why don't you get up on my turntable? If you're willing, I'm able to wear you out like a 45 record. Why don't you? There's something to be said for the old days. Remember the old ways. Yeah. Given the chance, everything could be saved. But now it's all been taken away. How could it ever be the same? It never even had to change. Well, let's give pop back to the people. You're the groove, I'm the needle. Wanna play it like a 45 record. Why don't you get up on my turntable? If you're willing, I'm able to wear you out like a 45 record. Why don't you? Remember when pop stood for popular and people made it cool cause they liked it first? Just another thing that gets manufactured. Humanity took a turn for the worse. Truth is, there's really no quick solution. Gonna all lead to a revolution like freedom of speech, the Constitution. Don't worry, baby, it's evolution. Hard to believe we ain't come too far. Video killed the radio star. Force feed pop like it comes in a jar, taking the taste out of who we are. No wonder why the world is so cold. Oh, that's the repercussions of selling your soul. Let's give pop back to the people. You're the groove, I'm the needle. Wanna play it like a 45 record. Why don't you get up on my turntable? If you're willing, I'm able to wear you out like a 45. Let's give pop back to the people. You're the groove, I'm the needle. Wanna play it like a 45 record. Why don't you get up on my turntable? If you're willing, I'm able to wear you out like a 45 record. Why don't you? Yeah, why don't you? Why don't you?
Love it.
Let me switch this off so you're not hearing the echo. Thank you.
That was fun.
All right. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Let's see here. Gotta turn this up too. There we go. Thank you. That was fun.
It's nice when old songs stick around, I have to say. Like, I have a couple that have been around for a while. And I always love new songs, but, you know, and you never know which ones are going to last.
Yeah.
But, it's nice when they stick around.
Who was it who was singing backup with you? She had a fantastic voice. When
Shout out to Dawn Thomas.
Dawn Thomas.
Dawn Thomas. Oh man,
Is she on the recording? Is she?
She's on the recording.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I have that. That song is actually I have a couple different versions of that song, but my last full-length album is an album called The Weight of These Things, and it's on Spotify, and it's largely a stripped-down album, but there's a full band version of that, and Dawn's on that version as well. I mean, her voice.
She's killer.
Something about singing with her that I've just always loved, and I can't say enough about her. She's out in Atlanta these days. And,
okay.
hoping that we can do some virtual sessions soon is what I'm getting ready to talk to her about, because I'm getting into that. Now
is she a songwriter too, or is she just a singer?
She is. She's a fantastic songwriter. She doesn't pursue it as much, I will say, and I kind of wish she would, but I respect, the direction she's taken and things, and she's happy, and that's great. But yeah, I mean, if anything, I'll pull it out of her every once in a while, because she's too good to not be heard.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, I'm going to reach out to her, because I just remember you guys playing together, and I just thought it was just awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of chemistry.
Love Dawn.
Okay, so I'm going to do something super scary, and I've been doing this for the last, well, I don't know. I think I might just be a glutton for punishment, but what we were talking about earlier about bouncing new songs off of an audience, and there's no like, running off to, some little room somewhere and trying things out. And I've been writing a song a week, and
Good for you.
And there's a friend of mine, her name is Kate Klim, she lives in Nashville, and she and I used to live in Boston. We knew each other back then, and we played a show recently together, and she said, well, how about we hold each other accountable? Every Friday we send each other a song.
That's great.
And she's like, I'll send you the prompt every week. And so last week, the prompt was, what was the prompt? Oh, the prompt was first aid kit. And I don't know why, but when she said that to me, I just groaned. I don't know why I didn't want to grapple with that one for some reason. I don't know prompt, like, who cares? One prompt is, I guess, as good as another one, but it was really torturing me. And I think the reason is because, I can't remember when she told me the prompt, but I remember last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and even into Friday when the song was due, I just didn't, there was just something about that prompt. And I realized finally on Thursday night I was like, you know what, I don't want to write about things that are fixed. I want to write about the things that can't be fixed. With a simple Band-Aid and a kiss, and I realized, that's really what I'm trying to get at, and so I texted her on Friday, and I was like, I got a chord progression, but I don't have the lyrics yet. And then by Sunday, I was like, I'm going to be late on this assignment. And then on Sunday, I sent this to her, and this week I've been playing it, so it's rough. And so that's
great.
We got some. It's like the other end of the spectrum from your song 45 that you've been playing, but we'll see how it goes. You're the first one that I'm playing it for live.
Excellent.
So I think it's called Soft on the Shoulder. Let's see here. Soft on the Shoulder or Witness. I think Soft on the Shoulder. It starts with a witness, a kindness, a vision, a hand held, an arm linked in mine, carving out some time to understand my crime. I try not to fear thoughts of change sought for old flaws my heart might not want to feel, but we can never heal what we keep concealed. Were you asking me to listen? Was I talking through your turn? Love more, fearless, it's a practice. I don't promise gold, but I swear it on my soul. keep trying. Were you asking me to listen? Was I talking through your turn? Was I offering kisses and band-aids, insufficient to the burn? Were you marching on the front lines? Were you calling for my aid? Was I standing soft on the shoulder? Love more, fearless, it's a practice. I don't promise gold, but I swear it on my soul. I'll keep trying. Were you marching on the front lines? Were you calling for my aid? Was I standing soft on the shoulder? Were you marching on the front lines? Were you calling for my aid? Was I standing soft on the shoulder? Love more, fearless, it's a practice.
I like that. I'm appreciating and thinking more about, especially these days with this past year and everything, writing songs with just that people need to hear, whether it's just to help them get through something and know that they're not alone, or just things that perspective, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's something everybody can stand to relate, that can relate to.
Thank you.
I also like that ascending line you're doing.
Yeah, that was the thing that kind of came up, and I was like, I don't know, I got this. I don't know what to do with this. And it took a few days to, it's still shimming into place. But, I think I agree with you. I'm trying to write songs now that, as I'm writing, I'm thinking, what is the bigger, I don't know if it's, I think of it as a mission. Like, what is my bigger mission? Like, what am I trying to offer the world, and is it hurting or helping something?
Right.
And I'm trying to keep that as like the guiding light as I'm steering, as I'm writing a song. Like, is this going to turn into a piece of fluff, or is it actually going to, so when I had that prompt early in the week, I was like, I could write a fluff, just throwaway song. I just have to write a song, and I was like, I really just want to stay true to that guiding light and see if I can get there with this one. So
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time. I used to write stuff that was not about me at all, really. It was just observational stuff for a long time. I was writing songs like that, and then I got to, I went through some stuff personally to where it's like, okay, it's time to introvert a bit and write about what I'm going through. And so I really dove into that whole swimming pool and spent a lot of time there. And which was great, and I like what I was able to come up with, but I definitely got to that point where I kind of exhausted that approach for myself, and I just was ready for something else. But I found looking for another perspective or way to write about stuff became really hard. I wasn't sure how I wanted to use, or what the angle was on my perspective to talk about other things, especially when it came to talking about, worldly things or politics or, social issues or whatever. This past year, of course, I really wanted to find my ways, and I've always had little hints of it, but I've always been careful to write about politically, like politics stuff, or just, issues, because it's just, it can be touchy, and then I just also don't want to come across the wrong way. And so I spent a lot of time really trying to figure out how I wanted to get into that, and writing a lot of stuff that just didn't make it anywhere. And then eventually I finally got into that, and I was I've written a lot of songs now that I feel really good about what they're saying and all that. So it's nice to come around to that place and
Yeah.
figure it out. But I definitely recommend anybody writing songs, if you don't have it right away and know how to say it, just keep it trying different
Yeah,
ways
totally.
to get in.
Yeah,
'Cause
just
I
keep.
found my way, and I think I've talked to a lot of other people that have gone through a similar thing. So I like that you chose that for that topic.
You know, I had just also finished watching that Laurel Canyon two-part
Yeah.
documentary, and it was in there that it was said, you know, sometimes songs serve this purpose, sometimes they serve this other purpose, and sometimes they serve as witness.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
you know, we as songwriters, um, you know, maybe we can't, or maybe we shouldn't. You know, who knows? We all have to decide how much, but you know, maybe we don't always serve as witness, but at times we should be serving as witness
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, whatever's happening around us.
Yeah.
And I think that's true, you know, about all artists.
Yep.
So, Joel, I have kept you over time, and I'm just so grateful
It's
that
usually my fault.
I just I feel enriched by your stories. I feel really
Thanks.
grateful to have spent this time with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah.
been great.
Yeah. You stay right there. Oh, do you have tonight's show, which I
I
put
do.
up. I'll put that up again here.
Yeah,
There we go.
like I
7
said,
p.m.,
normally
right?
my live streams are on Wednesdays, but this week, because I had a pretty busy schedule, and I also, because of this, I wanted to do it tonight on a Thursday instead. But normally it's on Wednesdays at 7. But tonight, tune in at 7 p.m. On my Joel Eckels music page on Facebook. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been mixing it up every week, doing just to keep it fresh. And over the past year, I did a bunch of different themes where I would either do different albums of my own or themes within my songs, but then I've also learned a whole lot of other people's songs, which I find fun and educational. And I've had some fun doing. We did a Bill Withers night. I did a Beatles, Tom Petty, Motown. Um, what else have I've done a bunch, and it's been really fun. Led Zeppelin, that was a fun one. And I'm going to do some more of those, I think, in April, where we're doing the themes as well. But I try to mix it up so that there's people that come back every week, which has been really cool, and I'm so grateful. And so, you know, because they're tuning in every week, I like to keep it fresh. So, you know, you can always expect a fresh show of some sort, and it's been fun. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I've been thinking today a lot about Ricky Lee Jones, so I'm gonna
Love
just
Ricky
say her
Lee.
name. Maybe you'll do a Ricky Lee Jones night.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know and currently know any Ricky Lee Jones tunes myself, but that
Give her a
hasn't stopped me
spin.
before. So
Give her a spin.
yeah,
Maybe you
I
could do
love.
like a Ricky Lee Jones and Tom Waits combo because
Sure, that sounds
they
like
were
a good
yeah.
combo.
All right, Joel. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you, and thanks to everybody for tuning in.
Yeah. And everyone, thank you so much for being here, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week is week 45, and my guest for next week, her partner is having a baby. So I don't know who's going to be my guest next week because we're doing a quick reschedule. We're going to have my original guest, Abby Posner. She's going to come in May instead of next week. So we'll see. It's a mystery. And I'll see you next Thursday. Until then, take good care.